Hello, folks, and welcome back. I have to say it's deeply concerning, although for many South Africans, particularly minority South Africans, this comes as no surprise, but remains deeply concerning to me. The dual standard at work in South Africa, the effort to demonize those of certain skin pigmentations who don't fit the needs of the political left. I'm speaking, of course, of the attacks on minorities and the free pass that majority South Africans of power get, not average Black South Africans, but majority South Africans who are the elites. Let me run through a few of the headlines in the past few days after the twisted, vile, racist commentary by former public protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Now, the Daily Maverick ran a very kind headline saying Mkhwebane resorts to crude nativism and attack on judiciary after Supreme Court of Appeal defeat. Nativism. Now, it was racism. The Times Live ran this article. I'm deeply disappointed and disheartened. Mkhwebane after the SCA strikes her appeal. Now, in the last day or so, the headlines have begun to turn against her in the media, but only after broad, nationwide disgust at the comments she had. News 24 now reports judiciary condemns Mkhwebane's racial comments while the Freedom Front Plus calls on Parliament to take action. COSATU, to its credit, which has previously called for her removal when she was serving as public protector, COSATU on his website says that COSATU condemns advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane's attacks on South Africans of Indian descent. Parliament issued a statement on this. Parliament has noted with dismay the unfounded utterances by advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, which seek to impugn the integrity of Parliament's staff members. Now, today in Times Live, another free pass, essentially, in which a journalist misrepresents the facts or simply doesn't report them in the story. Innocenta Nkalameng in Times Live said former public prosecutor Busisiwe Mkhwebane has apologized for her recent racial remarks when she claimed she was targeted by judicial officers of Indian descent after losing a case. And I quote, I don't mean to cause any perception that I'm attacking the legal advisors. They're hardworking. And at the end of the day, yes, I'm prepared to if they think it's like that. That's what she told SABC while being interviewed. She also claimed she was misrepresented. Now, in the story, the journalist had to put brackets around the word apologize, in which the sentence should have been, I'm prepared to apologize if they think it's like that. Well, that's not an apology. First off, she didn't even utter the word apology, and she never even apologized. So the journalist is misrepresenting the story here. Now, Mkhwebane continued saying, it's concerning for Parliament to think it's a racial slur. If you read that post again and again and ask yourself whether I was discriminating, being racist or being hateful, I'm mentioning what the current situation is. I'm willing to say, okay, let's forget about race and let me mention them by name or even mention that my challenge also stems from what the late Pravin Gordhan did to my demise. Well, your demise is a consequence of your actions. And isn't it disheartening to see members of Parliament and leaders of political parties get away with blatant racial hatred? It's unbelievable. Now, she is a sitting member of Parliament since 2023 for the Economic Freedom Fighters. Why has she not been expelled from Parliament? By Parliament. Unlike in the case of Ronaldo Gross, who committed no violations of parliamentary procedure, broke no South African laws, did no conduct to warrant his dismissal, he was dismissed by his party. Why is EFF allowing this person who spews racial hatred to stay? Well, because that's the history of the EFF. They spew racial hatred all the time, whether it's the clicks, domestic terrorism attacks against a Black-owned business, or it's the call to murder white South Africans at Senegal and the subsequent torching of 92,000 hectares of land, or it's simply calling for the murder of farmers in their so-called struggle songs sung by Julius Malema, who makes a point to switch to English when he sings, kill the Boer, burn the Boer. Yeah, well, this goes on. And this Mkhwebane thing is just the latest that we're dealing with. A member of Parliament. Why has Parliament not sanctioned her? She should be hauled before the disciplinary committee and dismissed in whatever fashion it takes to remove a member of Parliament. She's not worthy of being in Parliament. Ronaldo Gross isn't there, and he didn't violate any parliamentary rules. But what happened is that the legacy media, the fake stream media, the fake news yellow journalist out there, intentionally took an edited video to create a racial stir when people didn't have the facts. When the facts are in hand, it's clear that that was not any harm or foul. Now, on top of all this, we have the leader of a political party whom I've interviewed, and I'm very puzzled by his conduct. It all seems to be quite bizarre. In response to one of those Twitter accounts that's intended to get people excited and inflamed, that's Sir Alfred Carbonara. It sounds like an Italian dinner dish, but Sir Alfred Carbonara, that I actually follow among many others, people I like and dislike, and people are just interested I follow, so I can see what's being posted. But Sir Alfred Carbonara put a video of Nigerians hiding in the Sahara, trying to slip through and skate into Europe, illegal immigrants, in other words. And then it talks about, Nigeria, it's so bad after it's been released from colonialism that people have to flee to Europe. Anyway, not really germane. But Herman Mashaba has decided to comment on that. And Herman had the following to say: there are accounts on social media that depict us as barbaric and corrupt. If we allow this to continue, our children and grandchildren will accept what these people portray us to be. This is the same thing that happened during slavery, when we were made to be people who are not capable of doing anything. Well, I challenge Herman Mashaba to prove to me any of his ancestors were enslaved. And if they're enslaved, whom were they enslaved by? There was no slavery of the Nguni-speaking peoples. There was slavery, but it was people imported. And there was an attempt to enslave the Khoisan. Didn't go so well. So is Herman Mashaba talk about these people? Is he saying white people? Is he talking about, our people? Is he talking only black people around the planet? Listen, dude, you need to educate yourself on history. 1 million whites were enslaved in North Africa by Arabs. Black Africans were enslaved by black Africans long before Europeans ever came to the shores of Africa. In fact, for over a millennium, they shipped them to the Arab world as slaves, where the men were largely castrated and the women were concubines. So let's get your facts straight. Why is he spewing this racial nonsense? And let's go back to what he said. There are accounts on social media that depict us, and he said, talking about Africans, they had to put it in brackets, as barbaric and corrupt. Okay. Then why are you saying the same things? Let's go back to a couple comments from a few years ago. In a latest incident, this is back in 2016, Mashaba fired off a series of tweets displaying slideshows of countries including Nigeria, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, next to the number of crimes committed by citizens from those countries in the city over 4 years, the city of Johannesburg. Your xenophobic attacks no doubt incited attacks on foreign nationals in Johannesburg, the murder of many, the raiding of tuck shops and spazas by xenophobic people. Herman Mashaba can post things as the mayor of Johannesburg that are racial and xenophobic against black Africans, and then he follows Twitter for some account that who's paying attention to, post a video that a black African posted. That video was posted by a black African. This guy put the video up on his site. My goodness. When will South Africans wake up? Well, the reality is, folks, most South Africans are awake. This is political leaders, political parties, and the fake media that do this, that generate this nonsense. And it needs to end. It's sickening. It's twisted. It's unbelievable. Herman Mashaba's history of racial hatred and xenophobia is well documented. Well documented. And if you're saying, what do you mean racial hatred? How can you be hatred against black people? Well, anybody can be a racist, in case you haven't caught that. And yes, people can be a racist against people who have the same skin pigmentation as themselves. It's a fact. Get over it. Racism is a hateful ideology. And Herman Mashaba wants to imply that white people are the ones being hateful, when in fact, it's his own comments, it's his own words, it's the own words and comments of Busisiwe Mkhwebane, a serving member of South Africa's parliament, who sits in parliament and draws a salary while spewing racial hatred and then giving faux apologies while the media covers her back. Well, at least COSATU, the trade union full of commies, stood up for what's right here. Freedom Front Plus has stood up. The parliament has stood up, but the parliament needs to take action. And this nonsense needs to be exposed every single day. If you're white and you're racist, if you're brown and you're racist, if you're black and racist, and you're in public office, or you have control over people or employment or some aspect, not just somebody in a cave somewhere, then you shall be exposed. Enough of this nonsense. Rainbow Nation? Nah. Shame on you all. People are human beings. Most people just want to worship the way they like to worship, peace, celebrate community, get married, raise a family, and live a life of success. They don't want your racial hatred. Take it elsewhere. Take it on the arches and hit the road, Jack. Don't look back. Foot sec. Thanks a lot, folks. Cheers.